Hi everybody, welcome to Tea Time with the Emprezz 2020. I can't believe it. Here we go again. I'm just having all these memories of nostalgia of all the things that I've done in 2019. And the one thing from my first interview for 2020, I wanted to bring back my favorite, Devin D. Thorpe.
Well, it's an honor to be here. Thank you so much for having me back.
Devin,
you're the best, Gwen.
You're so honest, man. You're just so humble. I just don't know what to do with you sometimes. You just make me smile. And if everybody who's ever seen any of the interviews or anything, they will see that you're always making me smile. And Devin, I sat there and I watch everything that you've been doing, and it's like, you know what, you give so much of yourself to this community and to your humanitarian efforts and the things that you've been doing in life. And so what were some of the highlights of 2019 for you?
Well, golly, 2019 was in so many ways an amazing year. It was also a frustrating year, some real disappointments, but quick highlights. I was able to visit 7 countries last year.
Wow.
I love that. I love international travel. I got to interview Bill Gates twice, and I got to visit the world headquarters of Rotary International and to interview 8 of their most senior people, including the CEO, the president-elect. It was just a really, great year in so many ways.
So in other words, 2019, there was a lot of monumental effects that happened to you during that year. And we'll go back to everybody because he did say Bill Gates, okay, one of the richest men in the world. We'll get back to that, you guys. But you know what? So tell me about some of the countries that you traveled in.
Yeah, it was, I had a phenomenal opportunity last year to visit Europe. And so I was able to visit the Netherlands, Germany, Denmark, and Sweden. In Sweden, I got to go visit a little UNESCO World Heritage town where I met with a guy who runs an interesting refugee program, helping refugees that resettle to Sweden. And it was fascinating to get his take, to see the work that he's doing. He is himself is an immigrant. He was born in Peru. He now lives in Sweden. That just struck me as being interesting.
I have a lot of friends from Peru. Even some of the good luck things that I have above my door here at the store are from Peru and all those things. And this Peruvian people, they just fascinate me because it's just like, they're just like a little bit of everything. Just like you would think like the Aztecs or anything, they have a little bit of that culture of everything. And you know what? They make do with what they got.
Yeah.
That's what the beautiful thing about a lot of these things is. So the refugee crisis that is going on in Europe right now, how is that different from any other place like Greece or any of those other ones that from the influx of people that are coming in?
Yeah, well, it's very connected, right? What you see happening in Greece is transmitted throughout all of Western Europe, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because all of the people that arrive in Greece are trying to get somewhere else. Many of them are focused on France and Germany because they're big countries, and Germany especially has taken a lot of refugees in recent years. But on a per capita basis, Sweden has taken the most.
Wow. And
it's interesting. Even the most generous, open countries feel stressed by this. And it's clear that we around the world need to be doing more to prevent the refugee crises from happening. We need to be more serious about creating world peace. That is something we can do. We need to work toward that to prevent conflict. Part of that is to reverse climate change, right? Because what we're seeing is the Horn of Africa is almost uninhabitable. They're in the eastern parts of Ethiopia, Eritrea, Somalia. Those countries are almost, and even parts of Kenya, almost uninhabitable. And yet there are millions and millions of people there.
But that's kind of weird that that you would think that, because that's the cradle of civilization.
Yeah.
A lot of things have come from there. A lot of our genealogy, a lot of our ancestry, a lot of things have come from out of that point.
The birth of humanity right from Ethiopia. You're right.
But what makes you? The reason I'm asking that, Devin, is that But why would these people want to leave their homeland? That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Where does the crisis begin?
Well, it's because with climate change, what's happened is places that were difficult and challenging to live in have become virtually impossible to live in. Right? The rainy seasons have disappeared or shortened to the point that you can no longer raise crops, even keep animals. Right? There's just no way to make a living in the traditional ways, and these countries, some of them like Somalia, has had generations of trouble, and so in Somalia there are very limited resources, and so yes, a lot of people have left Somalia over the years. We've got a lot of Somali refugees here in the United States. In fact, in Utah, the Catholic Community Services, which runs the refugee resettlement program here, is himself a Somali refugee from like 25 years ago.
Wow.
So yeah, we need to be working on solutions to the world's big problems to reduce the demand for people to leave their countries. And so that was one of the other trips that I did last summer, is I visited Guatemala and Honduras. I was very interested to see what are the catalysts that are causing people to leave those countries to seek to come to the United States. And I learned a lot of things. One, it's extraordinarily difficult to leave those countries and come to the United States, and yet everyone I talk to knows someone who's done it, and many of the people I talk to, including many of the people I talked to completely at random, had tried and failed. And the first guy I talked to in Honduras, the very first guy that he was just the guy that driving my Uber, right? He's taking me to my hotel, and I tell him why I'm there. I'm interested in learning about why people are going there. And he said, I just got back 3 weeks ago. I just got deported from the United States 3 weeks ago, and that was the second time I tried.
Wow.
And so it was fascinating to talk to people and get a sense of how difficult it is, how expensive, how dangerous. I start talking to people, do you know anyone who's died in this process? Yes, many of them know someone who's died on trying to... making that pilgrimage to come here to the United States, America. And so, yes, it clearly one of the fundamental problems is the economies in those countries are struggling. That said, Guatemala is not a poor country in the same way that we think about poor countries in Africa or even some parts of Asia. Like Nepal is a much poorer country than Guatemala. But there are aspects of violence that are taking over, that there's an inadequate rule of law.
So it's more like when people get when they get their backs up against the wall, they turn to the streets, and then they turn to the more violent elements, and they turn to going out there and knowing that if there's no jobs, and pretty much they're going to make their own job. Because I had a little bit of a sense of that when I went to Haiti for 3 weeks.
Yeah.
And it was an eye-opener to me, is because as we've said before, I've traveled all around the world and I've seen a lot of things, but when I went to Haiti, it's when it made me honestly question my own humanity as a person, because I've been living in the United States my whole life. I've had those those things to be able to travel. I've had those things to be able to learn different languages and to be around people. But when I went and saw such poverty like that, when I saw people washing their clothes in ditches, and I seen that there's no supermarkets, the government turned the electricity off at 8 o'clock, and then it didn't turn it back on, and I'm just like, that made me understand that maybe I was taking for granted the civil liberties that I had as a human being. And why is it that all these countries that are third world countries, and people give aid to these countries, and people do this, but why are they still so poor? Why are these people living in ditches? Why are these people having so many revolutions and all of these things that are going on? Because they want this civil rights of being a human being, but those are denied to them. But I just feel like most of the world just forgets about these people. They just push them to the back corner, and then when they decide to break out and say, I want to be that next, on the next Mayflower, then all of a sudden it's like, you know what, boom, you know what, we want to throw you back. We don't want you here. We don't want to have it. But our whole country was built on immigrants.
Yeah, it's interesting. Great question, and I've thought a lot about this. Poverty persists, there's no question about it. Haiti is a great, tragic example. I've visited a couple of times. I haven't spent as much time as you have there, so you probably have a better sense of this. But what we see when we look at the globe, when I was born, 55 years ago, more than 50% of the world's population lived in extreme poverty. More than 50%. I want you to just let that sink in. One out of every two people, more than one out of every two people on the planet did not have enough food to eat, did not have access to clean water, did not have enough money, did not get their kids to school. I mean, they were, more than half the world's population. Today, it's only about 9% of the world's population that lives in extreme poverty, which is incredible progress. And in absolute numbers, we've gone from about 1.5 billion people living in extreme poverty to only about 700 million people. So we've cut the proportion from more than 50% down to less than 10%. We've cut the number from 1.5 billion down to about 700 million. So we're making huge progress. And it's very exciting. And the rate of progress on the elimination and eradication of poverty is accelerating. Things are getting better faster.
Is it because people are becoming more conscious?
There are two things I think that drive this. One is globalization. And we often, I know in my liberal community, we complain a lot about globalization, like it's the devil. And the fact is, nothing has probably been better for the elimination of poverty, extreme poverty, than globalization, because it means that hundreds of millions of people in China, for instance, are now employed in factories making our iPhones and stuff, right? So that has really worked well for them. And we sometimes worry that they're not treated well enough in those jobs, but let's be clear, what they were doing before was much worse. And yes, we need to continue lobbying for, arguing for, demanding better treatment of people who are making our iPhones and things. But let's not forget that before they were making our iPhones, they were much worse off than they are now. So there's been that aspect. But the other thing is our efforts at humanitarian aid, although not all of them work, on balance, they do help. And so we're seeing people around the world getting access to clean water. That only happens because of nonprofit charitable initiatives helping people get access to clean water. Same with education. We decry the fact that there are on the order of 66 million girls who are not in school right now.
Wow.
But the implication is that that's only about 10% of the world's girls aren't in school right now. It used to be half, right? So we've made huge progress. And that again is primarily charitable, nonprofit initiatives that's driving an increase in education for young women. And then food. The United Nations tracks famines, and they have official measures for this. And it used to be famines were quite common. We really don't have famines anymore. The last one was 2 years ago. In Sudan, and it was relatively short-lived. We're really getting better at not only growing food, but getting it to people who need it. And so we're making just tremendous progress in so many ways. So it's not about necessarily doing something new, as to have the patience to continue doing the hard things that we've been doing for 50 years. In vaccinating kids better, that's a huge opportunity for improvement so that kids are not dying in their childhood. If kids don't die in their childhood, parents don't feel the need to have as many, and everyone in the family is more prosperous when a family has 2 or 3 kids instead of 8 or 10. The kids get better educated, have better opportunities. The parents are better off themselves because they're not trying to provide for 8 or 10 kids.
So do you
it's just
think,
amazing.
so Devin, do you think that this is more of an education of people? It's like, you know, we can sit there and put out our humanitarian issues. We can see all the things that are going on. We understand the globalization of starvation, of people wanting to better themselves, people that have their families, and people that are saying that, you know what, I want my children to have better than I am. I want them to have the opportunities of the world. And so they make these pilgrimages, they make these sacrifices, they cross over rivers, they go under tunnels, they climb on backs, they do whatever it is that they got to do. And just for them as a human being, okay? Let's not look at them as a color. Let's not look at them as a nationality. Let's not look at them as a culture. But as a human being, as a mother with her child on her back and her husband and her children, and they come to a gate and they ask for that asylum and they ask for that, I'm hungry and I'm asking, and then what they get detained and put into camps. And then how is that? That doesn't make any sense to me.
What's going on in the U.S. border right now is beyond deplorable. We have gone from taking asylum applicants and putting them in detention centers in the United States where we feed and house them poorly, and we were separating. Now what we're doing is we're sending them back. We've got this Remain in Mexico program. So they come and make an application for asylum. They say, we'll call you when we're ready to consider your case. You go back to Mexico. Well, what happens is, of course, they go back into Mexico into a refugee camp of sorts, but with essentially they're just living in improvised,
mouth to mouth, day by day.
Right, so they're just living on the streets. They're essentially homeless in relatively low-income communities in Mexico, where the communities don't have the resources to help them, and the U.S. government is not providing any resources. So there they are, literally starving to death. The camps are infested with all kinds of disease. The children are dying, literally, because we have turned them away in their hour of need. We've said, you're not worthy even to come into our detention camps. And the detention camps were horrible, but now we've gone one step. We're not even going to do that. We're not even going to let you in the country. You can just stay in Mexico and die, and then we don't have to deal with you. And that is the policy of the United States.
But how is that a humanitarian issue on our part by being able to allow that to happen? Because what I don't understand is that we have an abundance of land here. We have an abundance of resources here. The building blocks of our whole culture that we're in is on the backs of immigrants. Everybody that came here came from someplace. They came from one. So how is it that my ancestor is better than their ancestor if they're coming from the same place? And all they want is the common decency to be able to say, I want to work. Well, if you look at it now, a lot of Americans and a lot of people that are going on and everything now, it's like they're like got their hand out. They're like, gimme, 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 gimme. Then there's people that actually want to come here, that are willing to work all them hours, that are willing to put in the time, that are willing to farm, they're willing to do agriculture, they're willing to do all this, and then we turn around, boop, we kick them straight to the curb.
We have a paranoia that has developed in the United States and globally around technology and artificial intelligence putting people out of work. And we're desperately afraid that technology is going to mean that no one has to work anymore or can work. And there's just no real evidence that that is happening. AI is accelerating really rapidly, and yet what's the unemployment rate?
Industry.
What's the unemployment rate in Utah right now?
You know what? I don't understand why there's unemployment. This job, every place is hiring.
2.4% unemployment. 2.4. You know, economists have this concept of full employment, and people argue about what that threshold is, but generally, people talk about anything below 5% unemployment represents full employment, because there will always be people who are between jobs, even in a full employment economy. But so there's just no question. We need more labor in this country. We don't need more jobs. We need more people to fill jobs.
Yes, I agree.
So what I'm saying is we have people essentially at our border volunteering to be that labor, and we are turning them away, and they are dying. Literally, some of them are dying in the streets of Mexico when we could instead bring them into the United States, facilitate their legal immigration, and put them to work tomorrow, because that's all they want to do, is work and build. And there's all kinds of data. You know the data better than I do, Gwen, but the data shows that immigrants are less likely to commit crimes, more likely to start businesses, and more likely to help grow the economy than people who are born here.
But the news is not saying that. The news is saying the polar opposite of exactly what you're saying. They're saying they're coming here to rob us, they're coming here to steal, they're lazy, they don't want to work, they don't want to do this and they don't want to do that. And I'm just like, you know what? My ancestors came over here, okay? And when they came over here, the first thing that they did, they wanted to better themselves, so they came into New Orleans through Alabama and they opened up a business, they opened up a store. And my Native American side of my family, to the black side of my family, to the white side of my family, okay? Everybody came and they worked together. Families gave to each other. My granny would be like this. She'd be like, if I got a little bit of extra something else and somebody else had a little bit of extra something else, we come together and I give to my neighbors. You know what? The kids, I know what it's like to go outside and to play. I know what it's like to have the tuberculosis things where they used to hit us all the time like this. I understand what it was like to actually be physically around people of all nations, of all things. And then when my father was in the military, it gave me a worldwide perspective. Sure. And so I come back here now and I'm looking at all of this and I'm looking at, you know what, how hard it is even to own a business. Okay, to be able to do the things that I'm supposed to do. Every day we have to work, we have to keep going, we have to keep pushing, we have to do all of this. But the benefits that should be out there to help people in situations like that, it's not like that. Where you have to sit there, your credit's got to be a good way. You got to have all of these things. You got to make a certain amount of money. Your taxes got to be right. You got to do this. And then, oh, maybe we might let you buy a house. Oh, we might let you get a car. Oh, we might let you do these things. And I feel like if I'm working 100,000%, and I'm giving and I'm doing charities and I'm doing all of these things, I'm paying my taxes, I'm going out there and I'm being a humanitarian. I'm not just saying I'm a humanitarian, I'm being a humanitarian. And that's why I look, and that's why I love talking to you and everything, is because finally I can sit there and vocalize how my feelings are, and not just my feelings, but the people around me, the people that I see come up in here, the people that I see come in the store, the people that I see through the production, the people that we go out there doing our charities and all of these things like this. And I look at them and I said, that you know what? I said, baby, let me tell you something real quick. I said, as long as you got belief in your heart and you got faith, I don't care what it is that you believe in. I don't care what it is that you got faith in. Have faith in your brother. Have faith in your mankind. We all came from the same place. So why is it that we have to be segregated? And only that is self-segregation, because if you believe in what you believe in, there's many of people out there that believe in you, and it's easy to say that, you know what, look at the homeless population right now. Why is it that we got all these people coming into business? Why can't you just set up a little box and just say, let me get some blankets, let me get something, okay? I have people come in this store wrapped up in blankets and everything saying, oh, can I be warm? Anybody else would turn them. You know what my mom would do? My mom said, baby, come sit down right here. Here's a free cup of tea. Warm yourself back up. And you know what? And when they feel it, they go back out there and they do it. And it doesn't take that much to be kind.
Yeah. It's really absolutely true. We need to be more kind individually and collectively. And I'm always afraid that our local politicians, when we deal with homelessness, are more concerned with protecting us from the homeless than they are with helping the homeless. Because it seems to me that helping the homeless, when that becomes the real focus, we will solve all of the other concerns we have about how the homeless people can affect the rest of us, right? But if we can actually help them, it will solve all our other problems. But we have to do that, or we won't ever solve those problems. we don't like having to deal with them, and I get that, but unless we genuinely solve that problem, it will always be a problem for us.
But it's called
we've got to solve their problem. Yeah.
Devin, it's called basic human decency.
Yeah.
If you create the problem,
Yeah.
then don't be a coward and want to push the problem away.
Yeah.
If things were set up in ways that is a human decency, to understand that your fellow man, your fellow this, that's somebody's son. That's somebody's daughter. That's somebody that, what if something comes down that politicians or whatever, people with money, people with influences and all these things, what if something happened and they lost their company the next day and they were broke and they didn't have $1 to their name and they lost all their houses that they got mortgaged out. They lost all their cars, their boats, everything that was mortgaged out to them, and then they're in that same situation in the crisis that they helped create. Then that's when the awakening is going to happen, and that's when people are going to say that, maybe we do got a problem here, and the problem is that we haven't been caring.
Yeah. Every year on Christmas Day, I go serve dinner to the homeless community, and it's a great reminder to me. In fact, I had this conversation with one of the other volunteers who happens to be a surgeon, and I said, every year I'm reminded that essentially, but for the grace of God, there go I, right? There is no difference between me and these people. And he said, you're right. You know what it is, Devin? It's one back surgery, right? You lose your health insurance because your back hurts and you lose your job. Mm-hmm. Then you suddenly need back surgery and you get it and it bankrupts you, right? So now you are bankrupt.
With a broke back.
With a broke back, right? Where do you end up? You end up on the streets. Doesn't matter where you started, right? You lose your job. Mm-hmm. That back surgery is going to cost hundreds of thousands of dollars. Most people are wiped out by that kind of thing.
And Shazam.
Yeah. So if you lost your health insurance, Shazam, all of your wealth gone in this country because we have such a fouled up healthcare system, and so then you end up on the streets. And one of the myths that I think is perpetuated is that people end up on the streets because they're addicted to drugs. And that happens.
God.
That happens.
That's just a piece.
That happens. But what I'm beginning to appreciate is that what also happens is that people end up homeless for health care reasons. That's the biggest one, right? Health problems. But whatever problem it is, they end up homeless, and in that circumstance of desperation, one of the things that happens is that there are drugs floating in that community, right? So you try drugs, self-medicate a little bit.
Because you can't afford anything else.
Right. And pretty soon, you're addicted to drugs, but you didn't get addicted to drugs and then get homeless. You got homeless and then got addicted to drugs. That happens, I think, as often as the other way around. And so we need to recognize that we just desperately need to help prevent people from becoming homeless in the first place. We need a much better social safety net in this country, in the United States, in Utah too. We need to do better. One of the things that I saw in Sweden, and I saw it in the Netherlands as well, I saw it in Denmark, we just did not see homeless people in those communities.
They treat people good.
They have
even their jails.
They have a social safety net that catches people, so they don't end up on the streets just addicted to drugs. So yes, and some of them have decriminalized drugs significantly or entirely, right? So
because they're finding out that what the problem is that it's not a sit there and say, well, you know what, let me go ahead because I just want to skate around the truth real quick, because that's what I am. I'm a realist, and that's how I look at things, and I said that, you know what, it's not about my popularity or how I go out in the world. It's my point being is that if I can help one person, and that one person can go tell somebody else, and that person can go somebody else, and that person can sit there and say that, you know what, I see somebody on the streets or something like this. Don't let me judge them. Let me say that, you know what, that okay, so if you don't feel right giving them money because you think they're going to give them drugs, give them a friggin' sandwich. Give them a clothes. Give them something like this. It doesn't, that, you know what, they can't smoke that. They can't shoot that into their arm. But
Right.
at least you know what, you as a human being, you can go to bed at night and feel good that you were able to go out there and to help somebody else. And I think that that's what it is right now, is that everybody's always talking about the me movements, the Me Too movements, all these movements and all these things like this. But what about the me helping somebody movement, the me being productive to my society, to me being productive to my civilizations? The ancients, Rome wasn't built in a day. Rome was built road by road by road by road by the people that they conquered. They had put them into their homes, they took them in, they took their cultures, they took everything, and they kept on stepping and they kept on pushing. Even if they failed, they sat there and said that, you know what, I might have failed, but I can keep going back on that road. It's going to keep leading me to somewhere. And that's why I think that what people don't understand is that we have babies killing themselves, 9-year-olds committing suicide. We got kids going out here bullying other kids because they don't got the same shoes as them, or they don't got the same hats as them, or their mama and daddy and them is working 4 or 5 jobs and they can't afford to have the hairstyles and all these things.
Yeah.
Why are we putting so much pressure on our youth? And they're becoming adults, but they're not becoming adults the right way. They're becoming street adults. They going out there and learning that on the streets. If you 9 years old and you sitting there seeing your mama going out there doing all this stuff, and you seeing your daddy going out there doing this, how do you think that is going to be productive to that child? It's not going to be productive to that child. I sit there and I do all kinds of things for the high schools. Devin, I do. You know, me and my mom, we got so much stuff that's going on because we want to give kids the opportunity to say that, you know what, if you're on a debate team and you want to do a fundraiser, here, my store is opened up for you. And I counsel them and I let them know how they can do this and be beneficial to themselves and be productive to society and to love other people that's around you. You ain't gotta love them, you ain't gotta hate them, but you can understand the plight that they come from. And so that goes into all the things that, you know what you're saying and everything that is going on. And this is just something that I'm very passionate about, is that I sit there and I said that, you know what, I don't want to get it to the point being is that we're humankind, or humans as people have to get to that point where you have to lose something in order to appreciate what you had.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's sad.
Yeah.
You know, that's really sad. I sit
Great
there
point.
and I look at all of these people and I'm like, you know what? It's not, people don't have time to spend with their kids like this. They don't got the grandmother infrastructure no more. They don't got that family infrastructure that while mamas them are out working, then granny was there teaching them, you know, the stuff that they had to learn, you know, growing gardens and doing the things that they got to, appreciating the clothes. If you got one good Sunday dress, wash that Sunday dress out. If you got one good pair of shoes for school, take care of what you got. You don't have that. Now you got kids right now, they give their parents, they don't have that time to give them that energy. So they just give them things. They give them PlayStations, they give them toys, they give them all of these things, and then they don't appreciate it, and they just throw it away, and then they wonder why they become the kind of people that they do in society. And there's the same people that sitting there letting babies die in those camps, that are sitting there, they can honestly, how can you sit there at a thing and you see a child starving, and as a human being, how can you sit there and be like, well, you just go on over there and I don't care? What kind of person is that? What kind of human being is that? And that's not just an American thing, that is a worldwide thing, because people feel that it ain't their problem.
Yeah.
And so if it's not their problem, and they don't have to put out no taxes, they don't have to put out none of this and everything else, so it's easier to sit there and put them people off and to forget about them. And then you sit there and you got the news, they only report what they want to report. You got people out there that are afraid to talk, okay, are afraid to say what is going on, when it's simple human issues. If you want to take care of the problem globally, you have to start with the self.
Yeah.
And that's something that you're doing. You're going and you're starting from what you learned and from where you came. And you know what? And finally, as a man of working in business and all of these things, and Bill Gates and all of these people, those are personal treasures to you. But you had to get to that point that when you said enough is enough.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay? Enough is enough. And that's exactly where you are right now. And that's why I was wondering, you know, and I said, let me get with Bill, because I've been watching everything that you've been doing, and I'm noticing that more and more over the 2 years that I've known you, you've been getting more fed up, and you've been getting more fed up, and you've been taking action. You're not just sitting there going out there blowing smoke up people and telling people what they want to hear, or doing a whole industry thing, or you know, whatever to make. And you know what? And as a result, and that's where we're going to go into, and we're going to talk this a little bit now, because I know that you know you're a busy man, but as a result, you interviewed Bill Gates twice.
Yeah.
Now, that took you getting fed up and you going strong to the wall, okay? And you went there, even you was shocked. I seen it when you said, I got an announcement, but I don't know, I don't want to say nothing yet because I might jinx myself. And then you know what? You said, well, guess what, everybody? I said, oh, damn, son. I said, he just got Bill Gates. I said, Devin, I said, Dave, something. I said, who made Devin? I said, somebody got under Devin's skin. I said he wanted to get down to the money.
You know, it was one of those things that I had thought about happening, and had really concluded that it would never happen. I had made a little outreach in Bill's direction probably 5 years ago, and it just went nowhere. And so I just really had put it out of my mind as something that would ever happen. But I have continued to write about issues that he cares about, and one of those is polio eradication. I've written a lot about polio eradication over the years, and I wrote last spring. I wrote just kind of a rant on my Forbes column, and about how people misunderstand others' efforts to do good and sometimes criticize them pointlessly. And I made the point that people are oftentimes criticizing Bill Gates for doing his philanthropy remotely without any connection to the people on the ground that he's serving. And so the criticism would argue that he doesn't know or care about what's going on the ground, that he's just got this ivory tower vision for what should happen. And I pointed out, and in fact, he partners with Rotary on polio. Mm-hmm. And Rotary has, Rotary clubs, 35,000 clubs around the world.
Since I was a kid, man.
And so, in fact, he does have a direct connection to people and communities right on the ground in the countries that are trying to deal with polio. And so, in fact, he is very connected directly to that work on the ground. Now, does that mean Bill Gates is perfect? No, but one of those famous criticisms people make of him, I think, is not well-founded. And yet that's just an example of how we sometimes are critical of the way others try to help. I think most well-intentioned efforts to help do help. There are a few, I will admit, there are a few that don't help. But most do help, I think. We can argue about which helps the most, but most help. And so I think we should celebrate most efforts to help. But one of the things that came out of that article is that someone on Bill Gates' staff saw it and liked it, and they invited me to interview him.
That's what's up. So, you know what? And so that moment when you're just sitting there with Bill Gates, and I noticed there was another gentleman that was there, during the day.
Yeah, he's the president of Rotary.
So what was them feelings that were going on inside of you? Were you afraid of what you were going to say, or you were going to, all of a sudden you'd just be like, I didn't think so, Devin. It'd just be a problem.
No, I have followed Bill Gates long enough to observe that he's always very kind. And I talked to his people enough to realize that although he maintains kind of a down-to-earth persona, in fact, the people who work for him revere him more than people who don't work for him, right? And they respect and admire him more. And so they don't take it for granted at all that they have time with Bill Gates or that they get his attention. They really respect him. And he is a tough taskmaster. I got that from some of his people as well. They don't get a pass just because he's doing humanitarian work. He takes it very seriously and holds people to account at the Gates Foundation in exactly the same way he kept people to account at Microsoft. Nothing's changed. Yeah,
So it's just,
you gotta deliver, right?
It just got another name on it, but he's still pushing it.
Yeah, he is pushing with that same deliberate focus, right? And so I was not nervous about how he would treat me because I'm part of his effort to build the public persona and not his, I'm not one of his staff. So I was not terribly nervous about how he would react or anything else.
He looked comfortable.
He did, and the
Body
other guy,
language is everything. He looked comfortable.
Yeah.
He looked like he was just like, it's like you would never think that people, see, that's what it is that people put so much glorification on the people and they build so much up in their brains and this and that. They're thinking, oh my God, and then it comes to find out that, you know what, he's just a normal everyday person just like me and you, but he's just driven. He's driven enough that he's run these multiple companies, these big time, and you got all this money and all these people going on. You're not gonna be out there. You can't be a Mr. Nice Guy 24/7, but it's the grace.
Yeah.
That's what I noticed. That's when people think I'm crazy when I be talking about grace. I'm like, no, grace. I'm like, no, buddy. Grace is when you are fine-tuned like a wine. You know, and you sit there, you have been through it so many times, and and y'all sat there and you had your meetings. Trust me, I think I don't be watching what's be going on. I be sitting here in my little headquarters and everything. I be eyeballing everything, okay? Because I find inspiration in the people that inspire me, and you inspire me, and that's why I keep doing these interviews, and that's why you've noticed that I've gotten better. You've noticed since the beginning, it's the critiques and everything that that it's pushed us to the point being that we now have our own media company, our own LLC on top of Irie Coffee Teas and Bobas, and it's like I feel that that it is the inspiration of the people that are around me, Devin, like you. It's not the point being is that I can say I'm going to get clout because I interviewed Devin D. Thorpe, he interviewed Bill. No, the point being is that it is a blessing to be able to have this conversation with you. And your accomplishments and your achievements that you've done in life has done nothing but made you a better man and made you a better friend and to make you a better humanitarian and to make you somebody else that as I look at and I'm saying that even in my downest moment I'm like, I can think like this. I said, Devin D. Thorpe interviewed Bill Gates. The dreams do come true. Things can happen, It's like, it helps me to get past all the people that are going to be judgmental, the people that are going to love me, the people that are going to support me and everything. I'm going to have a little bit of taste of everybody, man. But the point being is I look at the inspirations that I have around me and I look at where I am now. I'm not the richest person in the world. I'm not doing this, but you know what? I'm rich in the sense that I have the opportunities to help other people.
Yeah.
And I just think that, and that's something that I wanted to just get across in this, and me, I'm always, when I'm interviewing everything, I'm like, yo, dude, we can talk about all kinds of crowdfunding. We can talk about, there's 1,001 people out there talking about that. You talk about that every single day, okay? I want to talk about what makes you tick. Okay, what got you to the points that where you are? To see you get passionate about immigration, to see you get passionate about hungry babies, to see you, go out there and not afraid, like I'm saying? And that makes me think that what do I got to be afraid of? I'm believing in the same things. I want the same things. And if more people were to come together, and even from our audience and everything that's going, if more people were to come together and actually give a damn, excuse my language, to give a damn, then I'm going to tell you something, this world can be a better place. Because then people will get off that me stuff, and they will understand that they wouldn't be nothing if it wasn't for the people around them.
Yeah.
You can't go out there and say that you can't go to McDonald's and get a hamburger that you love so much and a French fry and a drink if it wasn't for the people that are working to make that hamburger, to make that drink, and to make that French fry. And you got to thank them for that they even got up that morning to give you that service.
Yeah.
And so that's why I feel that us as human beings, and I'm going to tell you something, I'm close to your age and what you think that I am, okay? And I'm going to tell you, and it's the being able to what it is that when we leave this earth, we can understand that we gave a true service to God.
Yeah.
That's how I look at it. And no matter what you believe in, how it is like this, you gave a true service because you actually went out there and and did what you did. And I just want to thank you, Devin, for this interview.
Oh, it's an honor.
I want to thank
you
for being here with me. I thank you for chit-chatting with me on the political level and telling me like this. I thank you for all the things that you've done, that you actually get out of Utah. And you go to Africa, you go to Sudan, you go to Guatemala, you go to Peru, you go to Sweden, you go to all of these things. Nobody can just say, oh, you just watching it on the internet. I'm like, no, he probably got some dirt in his shoes from exactly where it was.
That's right.
And I'm going to tell you something. I love you, and I thank you for being here with me today.
It's an honor. Thank you.
Yes, and I'm going to tell you, and I want to tell everybody thank you for here with Tea Time with the Emprezz, the first interview of 2020 that I have going on here, of Gorrilla Mafia Media Productions. And I want you to check out more because this interview is going to be on Amazon Prime UK and on my YouTubes, on everything that is going on. And I thank the man being here today with me, Devin D. Thorpe, once again. And you guys tune in. This man is doing great things. So